Okay, my friends, so now we're in our first Google Sheet. And a Google Sheet is just one version of what's called a spreadsheet, which is really just a number of columns that you can see across this way and a number of rows. So the columns are vertical. And they are labeled with letters. So this is column A, and you might notice that column A has nothing interesting in it. I'm clicking into these things that are called cells. A cell is just one of these rectangles. There's lots and lots and lots of cells in a spreadsheet. So the columns are labeled with letters. So column A, like I just said, is empty. Column B here has what are called the box numbers in it. Now, all spreadsheets are different. This particular spreadsheet has the box numbers from the nursery. The labeling of them, you don't have to worry about too much. In the picture you saw in the video, there were stacks of shelves, and these letters and numbers loosely correspond to the shelves. So you'll notice the first box is A01, A02, and so forth. And it goes down, I think it goes down to F or G or something like that. There's a lot of data in this spreadsheet. Oh, G, H, H. Okay. So that's column B. So now let's real quick talk about how to locate cells before we go through the rest of the spreadsheet in a Google Sheet. Like, for example, I mentioned box A-03, okay? The location of that data in this spreadsheet is in column B, row 4. It's kind of like the game Battleship, if you ever played that back in the day. And Google Sheet will actually tell you exactly where the cell you clicked on is. So if I click way over here in this empty cell, I don't even know what cell I just clicked, but Google Sheets tells me it's cell L8. Okay, so anytime you click on a cell in a spreadsheet, and this also works in Excel and probably any other spreadsheet programs you might have, it'll tell you the location up here. But you'll more often than not, you won't use that top left corner. I'll actually say things like click on cell D3, in which case you'll come over here to column D, row 3, and click on it. So just so you know, that's the way you locate cells in a Google Sheet. Okay. Keep going with the spreadsheet, and we're going to explore more of this in the lab. I'm just giving you a quick introduction. Column C is how many eggs were loaded in each box. We mentioned that in the video, how we go and get the eggs off the beach and then load them up into boxes, and hopefully when they incubate, we can then release babies, and that is the data that's in column D, how many babies came out of each box. We're going to talk about column E in the lab, the percent of live hatches. And then box type, there are, well, again, we're going to talk about more of this in the lab. There are 3 different kinds of boxes, and then there are the people that loaded those boxes. So basically, a spreadsheet is a really efficient way of keeping a bunch of information about a certain thing in one place. For example, if I click on row 2 here, I highlight all of row 2. That row tells me everything I need to know about box A01. We put 95 eggs in it, 68 of them hatched, 71.6% live hatches. It was box type N, and it was loaded by FS, who you will learn as Frank Smith. And that goes the same for any row I click on. Any row I click on, I get the same information about that. So a spreadsheet is just a really, really, really efficient way of keeping information like this straight. Okay, now, as you go through the rest of the lab, I'll have more of these videos kind of embedded in. I'll try to keep them short, but I'll also try to keep them helpful. So try the next few questions.